Thank you for coming out to our March 27th, 2019 special Board of Finance meeting. If you all please rise and join us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Don Cavella.
Here.
Gary Stallborn.
Here.
David Saros.
Here.
Scott Charwood. Here. Ted Dumaine.
Here.
Travis Irons.
Present.
And Scott Gardner is excused absence. And then Tom Sienkiewicz. All right, next item, acceptance of the minutes from the March 20th, 2019 meeting. Minutes have been distributed. Any questions or discussion?
I move we accept the minutes.
Okay, I have a motion to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes from the March 20th, 2019 meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to accept the minutes. All right, next item, under new business, to discuss the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget proposal. So to start off, one thing that wanted to note is next week there was some confusion amongst a few people which meeting is which, and we are of course sticking to our originally published Board of Finance calendar for the budget. So just to keep in mind, this is just a general discussion. Of course, nothing is finalized, and nothing is being finalized this evening, because that's already something I know I've gotten a couple emails and calls about. You know, a few people thinking that we're automatically going with a 2 mil increase, and that all the different departments are automatically getting what's in the proposal. But again, just remember the key word there is proposal. They are still proposals as of now. Even, of course, the town side that was passed the other night at the Board of Selectmen. And the next few weeks, of course, are going to be our time to discuss and really dissect these proposals. And also have the opportunity to ask department heads to basically answer specific questions for us. We also will have, of course, at the department heads job descriptions. So if we have questions when it comes to salary line items as far as who does what, and is our increase in salary line items, is that really necessary? We will, of course, have that information handy on the job descriptions and be able to ask them directly, because they will all be present, hopefully, at the department heads meeting. So just for clarification, the department head meeting is on April 10th, 6:30, still here, Town Hall on April 10th. Next week's meeting, on April 3rd, 6:30 here, is the Board of Ed meeting. So that's another thing I wanted to mention, is how we do have Ron here tonight representing our schools, but he might not necessarily be able to answer a lot of different questions that Ken would usually maybe answer for us. So just keep in mind that we will be having that opportunity, because that's our sole item on next Wednesday's agenda, is to get the presentation from the Board of Ed on their proposal and basically go down as much as we want to as Board of Finance members and ask them, again, what else, or what's the reasoning behind some of the increases, because it is pretty significant. What is it again, 498?
Yeah, 498, 767.
Yeah. So we will have plenty of time next Wednesday to really be going down the Board of Ed budget. But the other one, besides the, again, next week being Board of Ed, the following Wednesday being department heads, is the 17th. So on the calendar it says Wednesday, April 17th meeting. What that meeting is actually going to be is a joint session. And for those of you who've been following along, like last year, we did that last year, where basically it's a Board of Finance meeting still, but we invite the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed, all members of both those boards, to join us. So we'll have set up here where they will hopefully all be here, or mostly all be here, to join us. And at that point, from now, we will, of course, have had our opportunity to talk to department heads, get whatever information we really need, again, even in between meetings. And that meeting is going to be more of a discussion with our boards as far as how can we go and, looking to present this to the town, how can we possibly make some adjustments? Because I'm sure I can speak for everyone here on the Board of Finance that keeping the proposals as is, automatically generating over a 2 mil increase, is not going to fly, will not pass. And I've gotten a lot of input from citizens here in town already explaining that to me, saying, again, that I hope that's not final, and of course I've tried to reassure them that it's not. It's a proposal. We are still in the discussion phase right now, but there's going to need to be adjustments made. I think that's pretty obvious to most people. You know, the departments, as every year, are going to look for increases in certain areas that they see fit. They will, of course, have reasoning behind every one, and again, we will have that opportunity, the department heads, to hear that. But at the end of the day, you know, increases, reasonable increases, some may be approved, some may not, but adjustments will have to be made because, as everyone here I'm sure knows, this is a very tough year. And we still have some things lingering over us right now. Kelly and I were talking about that the other day. I mean, the big one being the MBR. Still needing to determine between the MBR and then let's just assume for a second, if we're sticking to the governor's budget, depending what passes with the governor's budget, the ECS cut. So you combine MBR of us having to make up the difference for last year's MBR violation and the ECS cut alone, we were automatically over $1 million.
Yes.
And so that alone is something that just is still, again, in the back of my mind, and it's been in the back of my mind now for weeks, of how in the world can we make this happen, where we'll still be able to cover that, but also try to look into some of these increases. It cannot all be done. Then another thing to keep in mind too is that we, of course, just approved last week the 300, what was it, 350,000 for the special education, which what we all have to remember here is where that's going to be coming from. It comes from the fund balance. And that is something that we need to remember, keep in the back of our minds, consider that, and then if some of these other things that I just mentioned, if that ends up coming from the fund balance, I mean, we're really depleting our fund balance. And we can't, of course, just keep eating away at that. We do need to remember that ideally we want to have at least enough for 2 months, upwards of 2 months bills for the town. And so it, of course, is there, you know, when we need it, but we can't just keep depleting it. So that's another thing that we have to keep into consideration when looking at the proposed budgets and looking at what we're going to present to the town to put up for vote. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to mention, again, of what's on my mind. We, of course, just got this past week the printed versions of the Board of Ed budget, but of course we've had the electronic version. So been looking through that, of course, quite a bit, and then after the Board of Selectmen's meeting, look at that improved budget, and I mean, there's just a lot to consider. But we, you know, obviously have not finalized it yet, so this is still up for discussion, which again is what we will be doing furthermore this evening. So what I'd like to do is, again, just want to give you a couple of my thoughts, is I'd like to hear individually from just some of my fellow Board of Finance members, because again, remember at the end of the day, we're all going to be working together to try to make some decisions, and they're going to be hard decisions, and we're going to do our best to make the right decisions in the best interest of the town and to present a budget that is not going to have a mill increase on it. And so it's not going to be easy, but again, remember that we're in it together. So I certainly respect, you know, all the thoughts, even at this point in the game, from my fellow Board of Finance members, and would like to hear from them at this point. So starting down here, Don?
Yeah.
Again, any comments, thoughts from you?
Okay. If we went with just, say, a 1 mil increase, we would have to cut, what, approximately $1 million out of the system? 900, well, it's 2.04, so maybe a little bit higher.
All right.
So I don't,
Dave? Yeah.
Kelly, what would a 1 mil percentage-wise of the overall budget, what would that be?
1 mil is 969,000.
So
So you would have an increase in 969,000.
What's a percent?
1 mil.
Okay, here's my thought, and I had this last year.
Yeah.
Each department, if each department cut 1%, 2%, whatever the percentage is to get a mil or two down,
Yeah.
that's where your savings would be, you know, everybody doing a little bit. Of course, I know there's some things that are already at bare bones, but somebody else may be able to make up some more. Also, there's some revenue things. The cell tower, I see it's consistent.
Yeah,
We don't
it's
have an
set.
increase?
It's set for, I think I have 10 or 15 more years on that.
And
And
a
it's
flat
set
rate?
now, yes.
Ah,
It's a flat rate. We had analysis done on that recently. Someone wanted to get the contract, buy the contract out and stuff, and it
Yeah.
wasn't.
It's not worth as much?
No, we had our attorneys look at that, and it wasn't
Okay,
So, yeah, it's a set amount right now till the end.
okay, so maybe it's good, I mean,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, and revenues, I mean, those are some things that if we can increase somewhere. Building permits I talked about last year, I don't know if they went up.
Yeah, I asked if any big companies were coming into town, if we could increase planning and zoning and building permits, and they said, as of right now, no. Not for next year.
I mean, because it's not all cuts, there may be revenues somewhere that in general. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Travis?
Just to echo some of what the chairman said, I think it would behoove all of the departments and especially the Board of Education to have a plan A, B, and C going forward in terms of what exactly can be removed from the respective departments and Board of Education budget in the event that we do get to that place. Unfortunately, I mean, it's certainly a tough economic time, and all of the different departments and the Board of Ed are clamoring for everything that, you know, they believe that they need for the service they offer to this town. But I think when the rubber meets the road, you know, we have to be responsible in a sense and look at or examine what we're asking for that could potentially be a luxury or something that's essential. And I guess also some of the larger projects or capital purchases, what have you. I mean, certainly every department, I'm sure, keeps a time frame for replacement or when a major project has to happen. And, you know, I guess it would be short-sighted of me to say, well, maybe that could happen next year, but I mean, we're not going to be in any different situation next year. So, I guess just going forward, I think folks could think about where the potential cuts could come from, because, you know, like Don says, I mean, probably 1 mil could potentially survive the polls, but I don't think much beyond that.
Travis? Ted?
Kelly, does this include the tax sale revenues?
Yeah, I do back taxes of $425,000. So what she sold this year, you know, you have to wait so many months before you collect it.
That'll
So,
be in this
yeah,
budget.
it'll be in this budget, yes.
That's what the figure we're using, but how much does she expect to collect?
She said around, I want to say around 300,000.
She said 300 and we're gonna use 420?
425, because people are still, not everything, say, on the tax sale is considered back taxes.
Okay.
People may be on payment plans, and that's considered back taxes too.
But what I mean is just on the tax sale, how much revenue does she expect? Is that the 425?
I think it was around 300,000, she was saying.
Okay, that's just.
Yeah, I can ask
That
her
was
that
just one
precisely.
item, though, right? She should get one,
There was some that came off the tax sale.
Now, what figures did we use for the MVR? The problem we have. Is that in here and then what figures?
I don't have anything on the NPR, what's that right now?
How about the ECS? Do you have anything on it?
ECS right now, what's proposed is what the governor proposed. That is 14.5 million.
But then that's also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, that's the governor's number.
Well, I think a zero increase is ridiculous. I don't think we can get there. I don't know about 1 mil. Personally, I would cut, I would go 0.6 of a mil, and I would gladly support that. There's two ways I think we can handle it. I think both sides could put a little bit more thought into this and bringing us a 2 mil increase, which to me is very obvious we would not support. So I would not be against just taking it and sending it right back to them and tell them what we want. Basically, I would say cut $950 out of the school department and cut $450 out of the town side and agree to a $600,000 increase in the budget. Now, if they don't want to do that and they're willing to let me make the cut, I don't think they're going to be too happy.
All right, thank you, Ted. Gary?
One thing to concern is their estimate on ECS money, where they got 15,349 versus this, right around the state's estimate. That's $805,000 difference there. I think they should definitely redo the numbers on that one. And Kelly, on local revenues, where in there is the lease for DACO?
Oh, the rental, it's called, rental.
Because the current year should be 64,608.
It's part of the other local revenue. The 100,000 that you see down the bottom is called other local revenue. The DACO revenue goes into there.
Now, has she extended their contract on that lease?
Nothing has been done with that. Nothing at all.
The only other thing I'd take a look at too was in the highway department.
Yep.
Now, the supervisor, he's still gonna be an hourly, just like, right, still hourly?
I don't know. I don't think he's going to be, I can't say for sure 100%, but I don't think he's going to be part of the union contract. So I think he'd be a salary position, not
That
part of the
should
contract.
should be broken out separate, like
Okay.
most department heads or whatever.
Okay.
Now, if he's gonna be hourly, then I think even his overtime should be broken out
Yes,
separate too.
yes, okay.
And, like the billings, assistant billing inspector,
Yep.
roughly how many hours a week, a month, or a year does it normally put in?
2450, 24, 20, how many hours a week is that? Oh, the assistant.
The assistant.
Okay, the assistant, Kyle. So he gets paid 40 hours a week. There's two salaries. That salary and the computers gives him his full salary.
Right.
The building inspector, full-time, had 5 weeks off a year, so he was covered for 5 weeks at least a year. And
40 hours or?
yeah, 40 hours a week, times 5, 200, maybe various hours, maybe 250 hours a week a year, I would assume. That's just my assumption.
$109 an hour, that's pretty good. Pretty good deal. You want to look into that one too? And on economic development,
Yep.
you got a lump sum of 10.5, which is a new line item.
Yes.
You may want to break out the marketing versus the other two.
Okay. Okay. How much the conferences are, everything, okay.
I should do it for now, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Scott?
So, I agree pretty much with Ted, but I actually think we need to get closer to 0 than 0.6. We're staring at a governor who doesn't know what he's going to do. We don't know what he's going to do. Look at the position we were in 2 years ago, where, all of a sudden we're handing over $1.3 million to the schools because we're short a whole bunch of money from the state. So we need to get as low as possible so we're not in the position where we're going to have to take $2 million out of the general fund. As far as the tax increases go, just look at the Board of Ed stuff. They're showing a 54% poverty level. So we have people in here who are paying taxes already, and now we're at poverty level of 54. We have a lot of elderly in the town, and we're talking about 2 mill increases. It should have never been put out there. From the town side, they shot for the moon. And, the way I look at it is shot for the moon, and then they're gonna try to, look better by cutting it down, and it's not the way to do a budget. Things that need to be looked at, $225,000 for a highway plow truck. that's what a plow, we gave him, you know, 260, 300,000 last year for the back truck. Now we want to go with a plow truck. Plowing can be contracted out versus instead of paying for a truck, I'd rather see it do a contract. Look what would have happened this year. There was not much snow. How much would we have paid on a contract basis? Again, I did transportation for a living. I cut a driver and I went to do contracts. I paid less money the last 2 years by doing that. I think we need to do that. The weather's changing. We're not seeing as many harsh winters. So to invest another $225,000 in a plow truck, and then you probably wouldn't have to have the highway supervisor, so then you could eliminate the highway supervisor. There's $285,000 off the books right there. The $150,000 for the roof repairs. I mean, how critical is that gonna be?
That has been, we've been waiting to do that for like 10 years.
Yeah, I'm just, that's,
Yeah,
those are
that's
the
one
types
of the
of things
items,
that.
like, all the other buildings in the town have been replaced with roof, the highway's the only one that has not.
Yeah, and that's fine with stuff like that, because, but I think that's the type of stuff, though, we have to make sure that that gets explained to the town. We're not just fixing a roof to fix a roof, there's some major structural damages to it, and we have to make that clear. You know, I look at some of the departments, it's just, you know, some of them are lean, and I think some of them, you know, do need to be cut back. I can tell you though, for like the police department, I support the administrative secretary. They have a lot of stuff that goes through in that, and they need some administrative help. I would rather spend $39,000 on that than $225,000 on a plow truck and a, you know, a highway supervisor for another 60. So, you know, there are some things in here that I can fully agree with, but $900,000 is a tough pill to swallow. You know, and on the school side, so let me ask, I asked this question last year, Kelly, not just the school side, but our side. So both healthcare is going up 100,000. And last year, it seemed like it was, you know, everybody was certain that it would go up to 100,000, but now when I look at 2018, 2019 budget, it's $100,000 less than what was budgeted. And now we're going back up by another $207,000.
Mine, on the town side, is going up because if you're hiring 3 full-time people, you have to assume they're taking health insurance. That's about 35,000 costs to the town after deductions. So that's what that is for the town size.
So on the school side, Ron, we're projecting $207,000 going up, but this year we went $100,000 down.
That's correct, because we readjusted for reduction in employment and shifts within the plant. People take a single family couple. We modify that every 6 months to make sure that we have the right numbers going into each shift foundation.
But that's what I'm saying, so if you're going down, you went down 100,000, so you're saying, even though you're going down, employees and
We're
stuff,
going
you're
down.
gonna go up 207,000?
Yes, because our consultants suggested that we use a 5% increase because of utilization. So we're applying 5%. Actually, the schools are doing a 4.5% increase over the current year projection. That's where your increase is coming from.
Yeah, so I mean, we just have to, again, we have to keep in mind what our population is. We have a high poverty level, we have a lot of elderly who can't afford another tax increase. Not saying we have to get to zero, but we also, again, we have to go, you know, look at what the governor's gonna do. We're gonna end up back in 2017 again, where we're gonna be really eliminating the fund. I told you last week, Tom, after the meeting, I think if we pass if a budget passes, no matter what the number is, and we don't have a state budget, I think both sides have to go into a hard freeze right away. Yeah. Because if we don't, we're gonna get caught with our pants down. Because we don't know what's gonna, I think both the Board of Ed and the town side have to realize, no state budget, it's an automatic hard freeze from the beginning of the year. Save money, just in case. That's it.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, and that's another good point I forgot to mention earlier. It's another reason why trying to stick as close to 0 mil increase as possible is with, you know, I know a lot of you here have been following some of the governor's proposal and some of the legislative bills that are still, some on committee, some are moving forward. But that is another thing that I've been kind of factoring in talking to a bunch of our residents. And again, what they pay now in taxes just here in the town alone. and also reflecting on last year's reevaluation. And of course, quite a few of them opposed that with the massive increase in their property value. So some of them are still, concerned and trying to figure out, those. And then I've imagined if some of the governor's proposed taxes actually went through, and they would have applied to pretty much most of us here in town, many of us here in town. And so I've factored that in too, is that if that, comes to fruition, that on top of a mill increase, or more, I can't picture some residents here in town, based on what they've told me, their circumstances. I know there's a lot out there, like Scott was saying, the poverty rate, and a lot of elderly, a lot of retirees, on fixed incomes. It's kind of scary, thinking about, what the possibilities are. And it is going to be tough too, like you were saying just now with the state budget. We have no idea when, that's going to be finalized. It could be a repeat where we're going to be going on very little besides the proposal, and still need to plan ahead and figure out our own circumstances as a town. So definitely something to keep in mind. Thank you to all the members. Again, I really appreciate those comments. Again, this is just looking at the proposals in front of us and thinking down the road at some of our upcoming meetings, what we're going to need to be asking possibly of some of the departments. And also confirming information too. A lot of good points brought up. Again, try to confirm it with Kelly, and we can also follow up with some of the departments on some of that information to make sure we have it handy at our upcoming department heads meeting, and of course Board of Ed meeting being next week. So at this time, I'll open the floor to anybody, any Board of Finance members. Again, any further discussion and comments that we have not discussed thus far.
What are we going to do with this tonight?
Nothing as far as voting and finalizing.
I'm not going to send it back. I'm not going to ask them to do it. Okay.
Quick question, Tom.
Yeah.
What's the bill inspector gets certified? Kathy's not going to come back to us, get more money for him at that point in time?
No, I have that budget in there as a certified.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how I budget.
Yeah, and that's, of course, another thing, if you remember, we talked about last week. Scott had talked about the number of line transfers, and that's something I personally talked about with Kathy, and that, some of them, they were necessary, and there were just circumstances where they definitely were due and needed, but we have, when thinking back to the past 6 to 8 months, there have been quite a few. So looking ahead, again, with circumstances probably not really changing between now and next year, we do need to consider that it's not always, especially when we're doing it, various times throughout the year. And that's something that Kathy told me she is going to look at it, working on it, not necessarily throughout the year, spread out like we just did, again, over the past 6 to 8 months.
Well, that's the thing, Tom, though. And my point to that was, which I think some of it got lost, is just the fact, I get it, line item transfers are going to happen, but we're in budget season now. If there's somebody who needs a raise, it should be raised accordingly, then do it now. Raises should not be given after the budget is passed. And then, some line item transfers, again, I understand, but then to start buying equipment, that equipment just doesn't all of a sudden fail. We don't have 5 computers that fail. We don't all of a sudden need a new AV system. So here we are, we're talking about we need to save money just in case the governor's budget comes in a lot lower. But here we are spending what could fall back into the general fund after this year. So we need to know. If you've got computer issues now, you know about them, ask for them in the budget. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get through it depending on what the budget is. But it's just the purchasing of things and the raises that bother me after the fact, after the budget's been made.
All right, other discussion, comments, Board of Finance members? Any others? All right, hearing none, I will then move on to citizens' participation. Just remember that this is a special meeting, so you may inquire about anything that was discussed tonight from any of the Board of Finance members, but obviously anything that was not talked about tonight that still may pertain to Board of Finance but was not on the agenda and part of the discussion, should not be inquired about. However, I will on that note, though, let you know that I'm always interested, of course, in hearing from anybody. If you do not have my contact information personally, my phone number, my email address, please come see me afterwards. If you don't, most of you here do have it, but that's something I do. Like, I check my email multiple times a day, and I've gotten, the past couple weeks, several emails from people just curious about, what is the, certain questions about the proposals, what does this mean, or has this been looked into? And some ideas that have come from it that, some great ideas that I might not necessarily have thought of, or other members of the Board of Finance haven't thought of. So again, in like a situation like this where you got a question, but it doesn't necessarily apply or fall into this category, please come see me afterwards, or please contact me with any questions or comments that you have, and I'll certainly take them into consideration. So with that said, I'll open the floor, citizens participation. Anyone for citizens participation? No? All right then, in that case,
Yes,
okay, sorry, sir.
Okay, my name's Jack Dow, I live on Moose Pond. And this was just something that happened at the last meeting I was here. This gentleman, I believe, is the head of the fire department, are you not?
Fire chief in Plainfield.
And you left abruptly the last week and I was here. And the Board of Finance had a few members at large and they thought it was funny. When I got by Moosup Fire Department, they was out. So I take it that he was on standby, that's why he left so fast. And I didn't think comments of why he was leaving was funny. I mean, you wouldn't want the whole public to laugh at you, would you? Because you had to do something, especially if it was your house or your loved ones he had to assist.
All right, thank you. Any other citizens participation? Yes.
Yes, Sue Hall, Central Village. Is there a line item on the government side, the town side, and the Board of Ed side for pensions? How many people you think are going to be retiring in the next budget year? I know the Board of Ed, they have, like, by a certain time, people have to let them know that they're retiring, and sometimes they get so much money for sick time, or there's a benefit for people that have been, 40 years in and they want to move them out to get the younger ones in. Is there a line item that you have to project for that?
Yeah,
So you have to prepare for that
Yeah.
extra money?
I project on the town side, if I know people are going to retire and they have sick time, vacation time on the books, I'll project what that's going to be. Projecting, it doesn't really affect the pension side of it because the contribution's based on the employees, number of employees here, their age, their length of service. That's how that's calculated. But it does play a role with paying out of vacation time and stuff.
Right.
So, yes, I do, yes.
On that topic of pension, I actually just thought of something that I wanted to mention earlier on, again, same topic. Kelly, the 88, was it 88,000?
Yes.
That's supposed to be going to the pension?
Yes.
That, in the budget, on the town budget that was approved this legislature, that was not.
No, that's
in
not in
budget,
that, no.
Correct?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, because that was a question that was brought up is, where is that, 88,000 that's expected to be, and that was not seen in the town's budget.
Well, the reason I'm asking is you have a number of people that work on the town side that are getting to that age where they're going to retire. And
Yeah, I've been
they
projecting.
made really good, if you look over the years that they've worked for the town, they're making good money. They've made good money. They're going to get Social Security plus their pension. You have to prepare for that. Do you take that into consideration? How many people are in their 60s and are planning on retiring?
Yes, yes, we do.
Okay, what about the education side?
Yes, we have a line item for that. Not for the pension, because the pension's handled from the town side, but we do have what they call a vacation accrual buyout, and it's the dollars that we owe particular folks that are leaving the district. So if we know someone's leaving, or we think someone's leaving, we will put that into the budget to cover it as a line item.
Now, when someone's retiring in Plainfield, or they're teachers, do you give them a stipend for their sick time they didn't use?
Well, it would be a stipend.
Yeah. How much is that stipend per sick day?
It'd be based on their salary. We don't give a stipend.
You don't give a stipend,
No,
so.
if they have any time on the books for, I believe it's sick, Mrs. Augustus, you might be able to help me here. I believe it's sick time, because they don't get vacation time.
Right.
Okay, so sick time on the books is just something they accrue through the contract. So if we know someone's leaving the district, we would accrue based on what the contract says, like 25% of a daily rate for them. So everybody's individual. You'd have to know if someone's making 70,000 versus 50,000 or 30,000.
Right.
And then how many days they have, and then you calculate it based on the contractual percentage.
Did anyone take retirement this year because they were going to get paid a stipend of like $10,000?
No, we don't.
Because
we don't
other
do
school
buyouts.
systems around do that.
We do not.
We're forcing out people.
We do not do
Get
that.
10 people out, they gave them $10,000 each to move them out of the school system.
We don't
So
do
then you
that.
get your younger teachers that are getting, paid less.
No.
I just don't.
That's not a practice that we have.
All right, thank you. Any other citizens' participation? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, do I have a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.